Hey there everyone! Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm so glad you stopped by today, and I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on any of our content. We dive deep into important topics that affect mental health, relationships, and personal growth, and today is no different. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one. We're talking about something heavy but incredibly necessary to understand: the devastating mental disorders that can be triggered by narcissistic abuse. We often think of abuse as physical, but psychological abuse is just as damaging, if not more so, because it leaves invisible scars that can take years, or even a lifetime to heal. Narcissistic abuse is a particularly insidious form of psychological manipulation, and it can wreak havoc on your emotional and mental health. Narcissists have a way of turning reality upside down, making you question your worth, your sanity, and even your very identity. Over time, the emotional and psychological toll can lead to severe mental health issues, many of which can be long-lasting. In this video, we'll be discussing 5 of the most devastating mental disorders that can be triggered by narcissistic abuse. These aren't just temporary emotional states. We're talking about full-blown mental health conditions that often require treatment to recover from. Whether you're someone who's experienced narcissistic abuse firsthand, or you're trying to understand what a loved one may be going through, this information can help shed light on the deep impacts of this kind of abuse. So let's jump right in. Narcissistic abuse is a pattern of emotional and psychological manipulation that is designed to make the victim feel small, inadequate, and dependent on the abuser. Narcissists are experts at gaslighting, a manipulative tactic that makes their victims question their reality and sanity. They also use tactics like devaluing, isolating, and manipulating emotions to keep their victims under their control. Over time, this constant manipulation breaks down the victim's self-esteem, sense of reality, and emotional resilience. This can open the door to serious mental health problems. One of the most common mental health disorders triggered by narcissistic abuse is post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. When we think of PTSD, we often associate it with soldiers who have been in combat or people who have experienced life-threatening events. However, emotional abuse, especially over a prolonged period, can be just as traumatic. Narcissistic abuse creates a persistent state of fear, confusion, and emotional instability. Victims of this abuse often experience flashbacks, nightmares, and hypervigilance, always feeling like they're walking on eggshells, even long after the relationship is over. It's as if their nervous system remains stuck in fight or flight mode, never able to fully relax or feel safe. The trauma from the abuse becomes embedded in their body and mind, making it difficult to move on and trust others. Another mental health condition commonly triggered by narcissistic abuse is complex PTSD, CPTSD. This differs slightly from regular PTSD in that it's caused by chronic, prolonged exposure to emotional trauma, usually occurring in relationships where the victim feels trapped and unable to escape. In cases of narcissistic abuse, the victim is often subjected to manipulation, gaslighting, and emotional blackmail over a long period. The narcissist may create an environment where the victim feels completely dependent on them, whether financially, emotionally, or socially. This prolonged trauma can result in symptoms like emotional flashbacks, where the person feels intense emotions such as fear or shame in response to present-day situations that remind them of their abuse. It can also lead to feelings of helplessness, self-blame, and deep despair. Victims of narcissistic abuse are also at risk for depression. This isn't just about feeling down or sad. The kind of depression that results from this kind of abuse can be crippling. Narcissists systematically dismantle their victims' sense of self-worth. Over time, this constant belittling and emotional manipulation can make the victim feel like they are worthless, incapable, and unlovable. This often leads to feelings of hopelessness and despair. The weight of this can be so heavy that it becomes hard for the victim to find joy in anything, and they may feel trapped in a fog of sadness that seems impossible to shake. In some cases, this kind of depression can even lead to suicidal thoughts or actions. Along with depression, victims often develop anxiety disorders, particularly generalized anxiety disorder, GAD. Living with a narcissist means living in a constant state of uncertainty. Narcissists are unpredictable. One moment they're love-bombing you, and the next they're tearing you down. This creates a state of hypervigilance, where the victim is always on edge, trying to anticipate the next attack or emotional outburst. Over time, this constant state of alertness can manifest as chronic anxiety, where the person feels worried or fearful about even minor, everyday situations. The victim may experience panic attacks, difficulty sleeping, and an overwhelming sense of dread. The narcissist often isolates the victim from their support system, making them feel like they're all alone in their fear and anxiety, further compounding the problem. Lastly, narcissistic abuse can lead to borderline personality disorder (BPD). In some individuals, particularly those who may already be predisposed to emotional sensitivity or who have experienced trauma in childhood, narcissistic abuse creates a roller coaster of emotional highs and lows. Victims may experience intense love and adoration during the idealization phase of the relationship, followed by intense devaluation and rejection. This emotional instability can wreak havoc on a person's sense of self and their ability to regulate emotions. Over time, this instability can lead to a fractured sense of identity, where the person struggles to understand who they are outside of the narcissist's influence. People with BPD often experience intense mood swings, fears of abandonment, and difficulty maintaining relationships. Narcissistic abuse can trigger these tendencies or exacerbate existing symptoms, leaving the victim feeling like they're caught in an emotional hurricane with no way out. The worst part about all of this is that narcissistic abuse often goes unrecognized for a long time. The victim may not even realize that they are being abused, because narcissists are experts at manipulation. They twist reality, making it seem like their behavior is normal, and that the victim is overreacting or too sensitive. This gaslighting makes it incredibly difficult for the victim to trust their own perceptions and feelings. By the time they realize they're in an abusive situation, the damage is often already done, and their mental health has taken a severe hit. Healing from narcissistic abuse takes time, and it's not something that can be done alone. It requires a support system, whether that's friends, family, or professional help from a therapist who understands narcissistic abuse and its effects. Many victims benefit from therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing (EMDR), which can help them process the trauma and rebuild their sense of self-worth. One of the most important steps in healing is recognizing that none of this was the victim's fault. Narcissists are master manipulators, and their behavior is a reflection of their own deep-seated insecurities and need for control, not a reflection of the victim's worth. Breaking free from a narcissist's influence is hard, but it's the first step toward reclaiming your life and your mental health. So to wrap things up, narcissistic abuse is a form of psychological and emotional manipulation that can lead to serious, long-term mental health issues. PTSD, complex PTSD, depression, anxiety, and even borderline personality disorder can all be triggered or worsened by this kind of abuse. The emotional scars left behind by narcissistic abuse can be deep, but with the right help and support, healing is possible. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this important discussion. I hope this video has shed some light on the devastating mental health effects of narcissistic abuse and helped you understand that if you or someone you know is going through this, you're not alone. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who might benefit, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content on mental health, relationships, and healing. Stay strong, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video.